So the first rule of dealing with other people, and before we get to that, think of dealing with other people. Basically, all these rules are aspects of one virtue. Which virtue is the virtue that relates to how to deal with other people? Which virtue is the application? Which virtue is the application of rationality to human interaction? What is the virtue of justice? So in every respect here, dealing with other people must be guided by justice. Justice is treating people the way they deserve, based on what they deserve, based on your values. So the first rule is going to be, always remember, in everything that you do, but it's particularly difficult, it's particularly challenging, to remember your self-interest, what your values are, what your priorities are, what your life is about when dealing with others. So, it's so easy. It's so easy in dealing with other people to let their values, their interests, their focus sway you away from what is really important to you. Particularly if you grew up with altruism, as every single one of us did. Particularly if you grew up with with this heavy emphasis on socialization, which almost every one of us did. It is tempting when dealing with other people to make them, their values, their interests, everything about them, the focus, and subordinate yourself. Forget yourself. And you see that. You see that when you deal with family. You see that when you deal with certain friends. So, I'm not saying other people's values, other people's interests are not important. But they have to be important to you. And you have to hold why they're important to you. And in a sense, why being involved with them is just. So one of the things you should work on is ask yourself questions, not when you're with other people, but when you're alone. Ask yourself questions like, why is person X important to me? What value do I see in them? How do they make my life better? What are their flaws? Where do I need to be careful? Where do they lead me astray? How do I focus our relationship on the things that I enjoy, that I love, that are values to me? Your relationship with other people ultimately is about you. But it can't be about you in the sense of self-centeredness. Oh, it's just me talking. No, it's about you in the sense of you see some value in this relationship. You need to know what that value is and guide and make sure that that relationship is oriented around what you see value in. So many of us fall into patterns of just sacrifice, focusing on the other person at your own expense, or just wasting our time. Wasting our time having being in a relationship with somebody, meeting with them, hanging out with them, and not getting any real value from it. Doing it out of a sense of duty, doing it out of, certainly this happens with family, doing it out of a sense of habit, tradition. We've always been friends. So the question is, you defining for yourself what this relationship means to you, why it's important to you, what value it represents for you, and why. What is it about the relationship? So that you can focus the relationship on the value to you. Yeah, be selfish. In the rational, long-term sense. Do you, and be judgmental in the sense of, evaluate, judge. Am I really having fun? Is this really beneficial? Am I really moving my life forward? Otherwise, why are you doing it? Because you always have? Because your parents expect you to? Because your spouse expects you to? Be clear, be objective about why you have the relationships that you have and why you treat people the way that you do. So let's say, I don't know, let's say when you meet a stranger, you're really nice to them. And you spend a little time maybe getting to know them, and you're really nice and really friendly. Part of the question here is you should know for yourself. You should, in a sense, prove to yourself, why? What value is this to me? Why am I doing it? I'm not saying that's wrong. Not at all. I'm just saying it should be well defined for you. What do other people represent for you? What value do they represent for you? I mean, for me, other people, even strangers, represents the value of being human and the potential that then emboldens. Short of evidence to the contrary, I assume that they are productive, interesting, positive human beings that can and would, if the right circumstances arose, contribute to my life. This is why I'm willing to help strangers, why I'm willing to stop the car and check on if there's a car accident, check on somebody, make sure they're not hurt. This is why I'm generally polite and positive towards strangers. This is why, without too much of a cost, I would walk into the river and save the child or save the person from drowning. Right? Because human beings to me are a value. But you have to define that for yourself. Because, and this is the thing, in a rational culture, this in a sense would be less important. But in a culture where we're raised altruists, in a culture where everything, all the messaging the culture provides is a messaging around altruism. It's a messaging around duty. It's a messaging around your life doesn't matter, except in that it can help other people. It's really important to know and to verify and to validate your own motivations, to validate your own values, to make sure that you're not doing it out of a sense of duty, out of an ingrained altruistic sense that you were educated into. It's important to really hold these ideas as an independent thinker. Make them yours. So just because it might appear altruistically doesn't mean it's wrong. If you understand in what way it's not, if you understand in what way it is in your self-interest. Now, you don't have to do that every time before you meet a new person every time before you face a situation of helping somebody or not. You have to do it, though, in a sense, in principle. What is it about human beings that I value? I'm going to tell you something Jennifer told me. Hopefully she doesn't mind. But Jennifer likes seeing people smile, right? It gives her pleasure to see people smile. Even if it's just walking in the mall, seeing other people smile gives her pleasure. And I completely understand that because it does me too. It's cool to see people express positive emotions, even people you don't know. Even people you don't know. Why? You should ask yourself. I don't think it's hard to come up with the answer. But just clarify in your own mind that the reason you feel certain things, the reason you do certain things when it comes to other people is not motivated by altruism. It's not motivated by values you didn't choose, by conclusions you didn't come to as an adult, if you will, as an egoist. So that, I think, is the most important thing, is don't lose yourself in your relationship with others. Hold your values, your life, your interests. Always hold them as primaries. As primaries. And again, I think of all the relationships we have, the most complicated emotionally, and the ones that we tend to be most drawn in by altruism, drawn in by unchosen values, drawn in by how we were raised, is our relationship with family. Parents, siblings, and you know, for some people, even their extended family, they have feel some distant obligation towards their cousins. Be very, very careful there. It's the parents who probably inculcated altruism in you. They expect altruistic behavior even though they cannot make it explicit. They don't even know how to make it explicit. They don't even think in those terms. But to them, altruism is automatized, if you will. They expect it, and they expect you to behave in a particular way. So you have to really give deep thought. And they're very good at manipulating. Parents are very good at manipulating. And look, with you, they've had a lifetime of experience because they've known you since you were born. So they've had a lifetime of experience on how to manipulate you. They know your triggers. They know exactly what to do and how to do it. And often your siblings are the same. Don't let them. Again, think it through. What value do they represent? Why do you want to have a relationship with them? Why do you want to interact? Under what terms are you willing to have that relationship? How can you undo whatever manipulation there is? How do you distance yourself from that manipulation? How do you treat the relationship objectively, fresh, first-handedly? So, of all the relationships, the hardest ones are family, because we feel obligated And there's real shared values there, right? Because you grew up together. If your spouse says you feel like you owe something to your parents because they raised you well, let's say, and they treated you nicely, and you, again, you've got shared memories and you've got positive memories, hopefully. All that is great. But make that explicit in your relationship. And decide what that is worth to you and how much you're willing to engage with that, how much you're willing to give for that, how much you're willing to trade on that. And beware of manipulation, beware of guilt, and beware of altruism, and beware of sacrifice. And I see sacrifice all over the place when people deal with their families. And sometimes the easiest way to deal with that is through geographic distance. Right? All right.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute, that man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it, and that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith. Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right, all right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes. That should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it. But at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing, whether you're looking at this. And you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share. And you can support the show at JeronBrookShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals, and show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So, yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.